Hello, everybody. I hope you're well and welcome back to Voicenotes with Jordan Theresa. How is everybody doing today? I cannot believe that I've managed to stay 4 episodes on the trot. Did someone say rebrand? Did someone say new person? And I'm so proud of myself. I do not want you guys to get this twisted. I am so damn proud of myself for staying on this, and not just that, but this work is so easy to me because I enjoy doing this so much. I feel like I was put on this earth to yap, and this is what I get to do with this podcast, and I'm so happy. But how is everyone doing? How's everyone's week going? So last time I spoke to you guys, I was about to go to the first festival of the year. I was going to go to Gala that weekend. I was so excited. I was saying I'm gonna stay up till 8 a.m. Guys, I got too fucked at Gala. No! I went home at midnight. So let me not even run you through what happened, because it was a festival, it was really fun. And this happens to me every single first festival of the year. So I don't understand why you keep expecting things to change. But basically, I just got a bit too fucked, and I feel fine about it now. In fact, I forgot that I was going to speak about this with you guys until I literally just looked at my notes, and I was like, oh yeah. But I will say, for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I had I guess it was anxiety, and I haven't had anxiety for a really long time. I used to get severe anxiety a few years ago. After any night out, I would have to text who I was with and be like, was I okay? Did I do anything? Did I say anything? Blah, 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 blah. But so basically I guess I had anxiety where I just got bit off my face. A bit too much. And it was guys, and somehow Gala was the most photographed event of the year, clearly, because the floods of pictures that came into my group chat where I just look on a different planet. I look so, guys, I am cringing. I'm still cringing. I've gotten over it now, but it's one of those ones where, and then all of a sudden everyone's posting on Instagram stories, and there was this one picture where I had clearly had a lot to drink, and my sunglasses were crooked on my face, and it got cross-posted 3 times by my girlfriend. That picture has seen the world. That picture has probably gone fucking international. Oh my God. And this is the thing. The reason why I'm sharing this with you girls today is because I want you to know that because everyone has anxiety, everyone cringes about getting too drunk on a night out, going a bit too far, blah, blah, blah. Everyone cringes about it. So basically, anyone that's going through this right now, I just want you to know, I see you and I'm with you. I'm with you. We're going through this together. And if you're not, bookmark Voicenotes with Jordan Theresa season 5 episode 4. And you can listen to me go through this, as everyone does. But it was just so cringe-inducing, guys. And then I ended up at the afters. Thought I was going to be pulling at 8 a.m. When I was chatting to you guys. Wrong. I just had to get an Uber at midnight. I was like, I have to get out of here right now. I did a proper Irish exit. I slipped out of there. I was carrying my wellies in my arms. I slipped out of there, and then I just felt so sick in the Uber home. The Uber was an hour long, and I was having to hang my head out of the Uber like a dog. It was no. But I want you guys to know that I still had fun. But the anxiety that I got for the days after, because I was just a bit messy. Oh God. But you know what? It's inevitable. Okay. You can't be on top great form all the time. There's a fly in the room, by the way, and Bootsy's got her eyes on it, and I really hope she catches it, because I'll be really, really happy for her. But anyway, so that's what happened at Gala, and I still had loads of fun. Next festival is, and to be fair, I had fun, and it got me really excited for Glastonbury. I'm not sure whether I've spoken to you girls about the fact that I got Glastonbury tickets this year. Well, I didn't even get them. Researcher Leanne pulls through again. Researcher Leanne got tickets for me and my friends. We're absolutely buzzing. We're so excited. I'm ordering a little 6-man tent for us to all sleep in. So cute. And I'm really, really buzzing. I'll do a full, me and Jack, because Jack's coming as well. me and Jack are going to do a Glastonbury debrief podcast episode. Don't you worry. Last time I did the Glastonbury debrief, it was by myself, but it will be much more fun to do it with someone else who was there. So I'm absolutely buzzing for that. Buzzing festival season. I love live. Also, I've been loving doing on Instagram, posting about Voicenotes core. If you have any memes, posts, anything, which you're like, oh, that's Voicenotes core, send it over, babes. The DMs are always open. So shall we do some thoughts of the week? So thoughts of the week of the, let me have a look. So thoughts of the week of the 26th of May, 2025. Number one, I think my new dream job is to become a dating columnist. Okay, hear me out. So I was chatting with Jack, and Sean Faye writes in Love in Exile how one of her friends asked her, why are all dating columnists single? And then I was like, wait, I'm single. And then I've just realized you'll see from this episode, I find dating so interesting. Like I'd probably say it's probably one of my hyperfixation topics is dating and dating culture and dating apps. And I just find it all so interesting. And I feel like now I've found my calling in life where I should become a dating columnist. Okay, hear me out. So I think that the reason why, Sean Faye writes in her book, Love in Exile, the reason why so many dating columnists are single is because nobody has to confront their singleness like people who are single, right? Or no one has to confront the real hardships of dating like someone who is single. And also what I will say is I do think that just no matter how good the advice is, dating advice from people in relationships does just go down like a lead balloon, because it's difficult, because I do think that there is a bad way to date. And I think that there's plenty of dating advice to give. But also I would say 50% of getting into a relationship and being sort of successful at dating is down to luck. So I think that especially when someone feels a certain type of way about something going on in their dating life, to the point where they are going to a friend for advice, when it's from someone who's in a relationship, I think people automatically don't want to hear it. And sometimes I get like that as well. There's almost like this element of, and I'm really happy being single, but there is this element of like bitterness there when you're going through some shit with dating and you're getting advice from someone who's in like a happy, loving relationship. Like you sort of just think, piss off. Like even though the advice is good and you love them and, do you know what I mean? You've asked, no, literally. But the reason why I think that my new calling in life is to become a dating columnist is not only am I obsessed with dating, I could read articles about dating, I could watch TikToks about dating literally all day. I find it so interesting. But I feel like I've lived so many different experiences. Sorry, Bruce going crazy in a good way because there's a fly. I feel like I have lived so many different experiences and lives through dating. So I have had shit relationships. I have had long-term relationships. I've lived with a partner. I've been broken up with. I have broken up with my partners. I have serial dated. I have casually dated. I have truly covered all. I've dated to try and get into a relationship. I have, gone through a streak of just going on, loads of first dates with different people, to dating one person for 2 or 3 months. Like, guys, I truly am versed in this. Therefore, I feel like I'd be such a good dating columnist because I have lived through it all. I feel like I've been through it all. So I want to know what you guys think of that. Like, maybe, because I was planning on doing a podcast episode called Lessons on Being a Single Babe. And maybe I'll mix that in with like lessons on being a single babe and like dating advice, just to sort of test my knowledge, test my ground. And then you girls can tell me if my advice is bad or not, because I think the approach I would come at it from if I got my dream job of being a dating columnist is I think that a lot of specifically TikTok dating advice is actually so bad. And it's like, I think the problem is with especially TikTok dating advice is that a lot of people are asking advice and giving advice from a very frenzied state. And understandably, as we will get onto in this episode, modern dating dating in general, I don't think it's a modern specific issue, although I do think there are problems which have been exacerbated via dating apps. Dating is hard and you are handling your most vulnerable sides. You are not even handling, you're confronting your largest insecurities and vulnerabilities. That's the thought of getting into a relationship, the thought of being alone, your physical appearance, your personality, your character. Like, there's so many things that are very vulnerable, that really hit nerves, that people are being confronted by when they date. Therefore, when people are asking for advice or giving advice, it is often from a frenzied, very emotional state. And like, I feel like when I say very emotional, I'm sounding a bit misogynistic, and I really don't mean it like boots. I really don't mean it like that at all. It's more, and I understand why people get like emotional during dating. I get emotional during dating. Like, I get really, really in my head and really, really anxious. Like when I used to date people, I used to get so anxious. Like, it used to, oh my God, this cat. Did you catch it?
What the hell, man?
She caught it in her mouth.
The fly?
Yeah, but then it flew away. So I understand why people give like quite black and white harsh advice, but I think that so much of TikTok dating advice does not factor in the complexities of life. So do you want to know the time that I knew? I was like, damn, this shit is insane. Like, no, like, you guys should not be taking advice from each other. Because the thing is the people that are asking for advice are usually fairly level-headed. It's the advice that is given that is not level-headed at all. And I think, again, this lack of level-headedness, it comes from a place of being hurt. So like, I do understand people's empathy. I understand people having their guard up. Like, girls, I've been through the ringer. Trust me. But I saw this TikTok where this girl said, I went on a date with this guy, and it went really, really well. And, you know, we made out and all of this. And then he texted me when I was home saying, you know, I'd love to see you again. And he was going to London for the weekend, right? He was going on a trip to London for the weekend. So she was like, yep, sure. And he's like, okay, like, great. I will like text you when I'm back. And, you know, she's like still texting him throughout when he's on his trip, but he's like leaving her undelivered for like, you know, 8, 10, 12 hours at a time, right? And she's like, I'm just not sure if he's like interested in me because he's leaving me undelivered. This is the thing. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh my God, don't expect people to text you all the time. When a man leaves me undelivered for more than 6 hours, I'm like, he hates me. And that's something that I'm trying to train myself out of, because although it can signal that someone's not interested in you, I think it's important to factor in what they're up to, what's going on in their life, what they're doing, like if they're going on a trip, if they're on a night out, stuff like that. But also it's important to factor in whether the only time that I think you should really take into consideration when someone is slowing down a lot, like significantly with their texting, is if it differs from their behavior before. So if before they were like really on it with, if that's like the relationship that you'd formed and they were really, really on it with the texting, you know, literally texting you every hour, and now they're texting you, you know, like once a day. Sure, I understand that. If like nothing has changed like in their life, right? Although sometimes people do just relax into it and don't feel the need to text you all the time. But I understand where people are coming from. But this guy was like, oh, he's leaving me on delivered for 12 hours. And when he replies, he's like, oh, I still want to see you. I'm just on this trip. I'm not really looking at my phone. So I'm thinking, okay, so he wants to see you because he said he wants to see you. He hasn't been looking at his phone. Just leave it, right? The comments of people like, if he hasn't replied to you for 12 hours, he doesn't like you. Girls, come on. Like, no. So basically, like, this is the type of advice which gets thrown around. And I think that it all becomes an echo chamber. And I think that my sort of approach with dating is that, yes, I keep my guard up. Yes, I don't let my hopes get too high. But also, I would rather think the best of people and be disappointed than essentially become not a narcissist. Then essentially become a cynic. Like, and I think that's what dating unfortunately turns so many people into, because people are treated so badly, and it's like so sad, and it's really a symptom of like how bad dating can be. But my greatest piece of advice is to not, if you can feel yourself turning into a cynic, take a fucking circuit break. Like, just take a break, get yourself out of the game for a second. Again, I understand not getting too excited. I understand not getting your hopes up, stuff like that. But also, like, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I do always assume the best in people, because I would rather be disappointed than go into every dating experience thinking that they're going to fuck me over. Because that's not a fun way to date. Like, I think that's something that's really important to remember about dating, is that it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. Like, it's so fun meeting new people, etc. And if you go in thinking this guy's going to fuck me over, I'm going to go on 3 dates with him, shag him, and he's going to ghost me, all of this, then like, what fun are you having? And like, and I've done this too. Like, maybe you just need to take a break. But that is where my dream of being a dating columnist, a dating sex and also with sex, I used to have vaginismus. I mean, I do still have vaginismus. I feel like I'm so versed, like in different, like my sex drive has like ebbed and flowed so much throughout my life. Whether I'm in like a long-term relationship or not, you know, I don't know, guys. Like, I think this is my calling. Like, I actually think this is my calling. So, in today's episode, speaking of dating, speaking of being a dating columnist, in today's episode of Voicenotes Jordan Theresa, I want to talk about the rise of offline dating. An article which really helped me out with sort of taking notes for this podcast episode is this article on Dazed about offline dating, which I highly recommend. You know, where would we be without Serena Smith? I credit Serena Smith for giving me so many video ideas, reel ideas, podcast ideas. I actually don't know where the Jordan Theresa enterprise would be standing without Serena Smith. But so as I mentioned earlier, I noticed that my sort of hyperfixation on dating has very much, ever since becoming single, I have become quite hyperfixated on dating. As in, like, dating as a topic, dating as a sort of dating as a cultural phenomenon, dating in this new technological era, dating within, you know, gender constructs, right? Because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed a major gender imbalance within heterosexual dating, where, you know, the good-looking men, they're having the time of their fucking lives. Meanwhile, the women, we're in the trenches. And I think that it's like so interesting. And, you know, I also am really interested in where the place of dating stands now, where so many women that I know are essentially, I wrote down, taking control of their own destiny, which is a bit cheesy. But so many women I know are so in control of their lives. They, including myself, you know, they have careers that they love, they have friends that they love, and you know, their lives are so fulfilled that essentially when your life is fulfilled, your standards raise significantly. And I'm like so interested in the place of dating when the girlies are raising their standards. And I don't think we've quite seen it yet, I will say, but I do think, and I'm coming from like my sort of generation, I'm 26, is that, you know, most people that I know tend to settle down between the age, as in like meet the person that they think they're going to spend the rest of their life with, between the age of, I'd say 27 and like 32, right? But the thing is that so many women that I know, they don't feel the pressure at all to find a partner because they're like, I'm so happy. I literally do not need, I do not need a man. I do not need a man. And I'm so interested to see how this is going to play out in the future when there's going to be a lot of men who want to settle down, but the women are raising their standards. I feel like, and again, maybe, you know, your social circle, your feeds, they're an echo chamber. So I know that there's like plenty of people who will accept mediocrity from their partner just because they want a partner, just because they want to be in a relationship. But I'm really interested to see how women raising their standards, building fulfilling lives for themselves outside of having a relationship. And really, you know, we're socialized as women to yearn for a relationship, for a relationship to almost be, a relationship is almost an integral part of like the woman's life cycle, right? It's almost like an integral life goal because so much is born from the relationship. So you get into the relationship, that's where the marriage comes from, that's where the house comes from, that's where the babies come from, right? And so many women are realizing that not only is the sort of path of, the husband and the house and the baby a path that they don't really want to take, but also that the relationship part isn't necessary for their happiness. And I also think it's not just that, but like, it's not just women realizing that, oh, they don't need to be in a relationship to be happy. It's a lot of women realizing that they're actually a lot happier out of their relationship. And a lot of women that I know, as in like, I used to be like quite a serial dater, and I know a lot of women, right? I was the only serial dater that I knew. Like, no other women that I knew dated, like, and by the way, serial dater, that sounds like quite extreme, but I would actively date. That's the correct word. I was the only woman that I knew that actively dated. No woman that I know actively date, because they don't care. Because they don't care. They actively don't want to meet someone, because they don't think that someone can add to their lives and make their lives more fulfilling than they already are. I could talk about, decentering men in a whole other podcast episode. So I don't want to get into that today. But before we get into this episode, I want to talk about what perspective this is coming from, because I know a few people are probably new here and you don't know about me, but I am single. I have been single for a year now. I came out of a year ago, I came out of a very long-term relationship. We were together for over 3 years. We lived together, and it just didn't work out. We weren't compatible anymore. We grew into very, very different directions. And before that breakup, I had never dated before. The way that my relationship history went was I had a boyfriend in school. I had a boyfriend for 3 years after I left school, who I met at the pub. And then I had my last boyfriend, who we met on Instagram. We were like from the same area. And I'd never used a dating app. I mean, I think I'd had Tinder when I was 18, but I'd never like gone on a date from Tinder before. Oh my God, throwback to Tinder. But I had never been I'd never really used dating apps. I'd never dated before. So when I became single, I really threw myself in head first with the dating. And look, I've had highs. I've found out so much about myself. The biggest piece of advice that I received at the beginning, which I think is the most important advice, is that dating is a muscle that you train. So it's one of those ones where I have done it, and it's difficult, because it's like a lot of people will measure whether you're good at dating based on whether you're in a relationship or not. And I actually don't necessarily think that's the case, because I think you can be a great date, you can be great company, you can be good looking, this, that, and the other. But if someone's going to fuck you over, they're going to fuck you over. If someone has the intention of just sort of like racking up the notches on the bedpost, then you're not really going to make a difference. I think more what makes someone good at dating is if they are good on a date, right? If they're good on a date, if they're good company, if they're a good time, that's what makes someone good at dating. Also, it's like being good with dating etiquette as well. Something that I learned the hard way was I used to be such an oversharer on dating. Oh my God. Like, it literally makes me cringe how much I overshared in that first, I'd probably say 3-4 months of dating. Like, I actually cringe so much. Because the thing is, when you go from being in a long-term relationship where you tell everything to someone to dating someone, you forget that there's got to be etiquette. You have to maintain a bit of mystery. But I really want to throw myself in head first, because I've never done it before. And what I will say is that it's a muscle that I've trained, and now I think that I'm like good at going on dates. I have fun. I'm good at vetting people on Hinge, like via message. I very rarely go on like a dud of a date anymore. I went on like a few duds at the beginning. I like very, very rarely go on a dud anymore. But I've had my highs. But my God, I have had my lows. And very recently, I just had a shitter of a week dating. Was not a good week. And I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a few weeks out, little circuit breaker, and then I'm going to get back into it. And honestly, the longer this circuit breaker has gone on, the more my interest in dating has waned. And and what I mean by that is, when I did date, it was very all-consuming. Like, I was very, I have like an obsessive personality anyway because of my OCD. But when I was dating someone, because, I went through like my very serial dating phase, and then I went through more recently more of like a dating sort of one person at a time, and like, dating them for a couple of months. And even through this, I would be so all consumed with whether they liked me or not. And I would be so anxious about them ghosting me or about them ending things with me, that I would forget that I also need to consider whether I like them. I was so consumed and my mind was so taken up with them liking me that I thought that I forgot that I need to figure out if I like them as well. And I basically had this shit week, and, and it's not just that. My mind was also consumed with whether this person was going to be my next partner. I would be so consumed with, are they the one? I'm not even going to say are they the one, but are they going to be my next partner? Are they boyfriend material? Are they this? Are they that? That, number one, didn't enjoy it as much as I should have. But also, number two, I found myself not appreciating what I've got right now. And what I mean by that, I think it's like a very human feeling, a very human experience to not be appreciative of like what you've got right now. But something that it's a realization that I came to literally within the past couple of weeks, was that my mind was so all consumed with when I was dating someone, if they were going to be my next partner, are we compatible? Am I ever going to meet someone? Because, when it didn't work out, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm never going to meet someone. And then it would send me into this almost like this anxiety, this panic, right? That I forgot that over a year ago, when my relationship was breaking down and it was awful, I was dreaming of times like these. I was dreaming of it's got nothing to do with dating. I was dreaming of being single, of being independent, of having so much spare time to invest in my friendships, to invest in work. And, I almost felt like through dating, all of that, appreciation for what I've got completely dissipated. And because I was so focused on whether I was going to meet someone. And not just that, but it's more like, because it's so weird, because it's like, I think two things can be true at once, where like, I am happy being single, but at the same time, I did get anxiety about not meeting someone again, especially when, a lot of my friends are single, but a lot of my friends are in relationships. And it's one of those ones where, people just have less time for you when they're in a relationship, right? My mind just became a bit consumed with this anxiety of whether I was going to meet someone and, when is it going to happen and will it ever happen? And, because obviously I had dated and it just wasn't working out with anyone, like, and that sort of gave me like a level of anxiety. And I think that it gave me so much anxiety that I realized I was not appreciating the fact that I turned my life upside down last year to have the life that I have now. It honestly took less than a year for that to essentially reverse and for me to be pining and yearning for a relationship again. And this is a conclusion I've come to very, very recently, girls. And the thing is that I'm not going to beat myself up too much over it. Because at the end of the day, I think everyone is like this, but especially as women, we are hardwired to want to be in a relationship. So I'm not going to beat myself up too much over it. But it's just something that I noticed that whilst I was actively dating, I was not appreciating the fact that I wanted the life that I have right now and I wanted to be single. And I need to just appreciate it more. So at the moment, my sort of little dating situ is I still have Hinge. I am not against going on a date, but it's not like I'm really truly not losing sleep over it. And, just again, the longer the circuit break is, the more my interest wanes, the more I'm just like, I can very much do without this, especially because the summer's coming up and the summer's so bloody busy, that I just haven't got time for it, babes. I haven't got time. But my recent decrease in Hinge usage, I think is much more related to my feelings towards dating rather than my feelings towards dating apps. I think so much of dating discourse is taken up with people's feelings specifically towards dating apps. when rather I think a lot of our feelings towards dating are actually related to the current climate of dating. But I am not the only person who has decreased their usage in dating apps. Dating apps are reporting user losses across the board. Dating app usage has been in decline for at least 3 years. So it's interesting to answer, where do the problems lie? Do the problems lie with dating, or do the problems lie with dating apps? I personally think that it is a mix of both, because if we just look at any pop culture of the past 30 and 40 years, people have always been complaining about dating, especially dating in cities. Sex in the City being the pinnacle example for the fact that men have been mad for many years, girls. Men's madness transcends decades, centuries even. You know, there has always been a deep gender imbalance within dating where men yield most, if not all, of the power. I've been saying this for years, but women hold sexual currency, meanwhile men hold relationship currency. So, you know, in heterosexual dating scenarios, the woman is the person who decides when you have sex, but the man is the person who decides when you get into a relationship. And most of that has to do with sort of like the heteronormative constructs of dating, where the man is the person who asks you out, and, you know, the man sort of yields the control in that way, and the woman doesn't. And also there's a lot of just, you know, as someone who has dated a lot of straight men are so weird about like dominant women and, you know, being asked out on dates, and even when a woman is more successful than them, they feel a certain type of way about it. But I do believe that there are problems which are exclusive to or have been very exacerbated by dating apps. So I now, you know, the big one being we now have unprecedented access to single and available people. And I think that's leading people to treat each other a lot more disposably, because they know that they can just replace you with someone in a few days maximum. You know, it's very, very easy, obviously dependent on, you know, who you are and, you know, whether your chat's good or not. But being able to replace someone that you're dating via a dating app is very, very easy. So I think that's leading a lot of people to treat each other a lot more disposably. And often I think a lot of people aren't willing to give people a chance. I think a lot of people are, you know, as soon as they sense something that, and look, I think that girls, we've got to have our standards, we've got to have our boundaries, etc. But also I think when someone, you know, when there's a little bit of a rockiness in the water, people very, very easily dispose of each other rather than sort of giving it a chance, because people can so easily be replaced. You know, people just aren't really willing to give things a chance and stick things out because of how disposable we've become. And because of this unprecedented access, I think that dating apps have facilitated sex addiction in a lot of young men. And I think I've spoken about this before on the pod, but I think when we think of sex addiction, we think of someone who is literally addicted to the act of having sex, and they just want to have sex all the time and it's all they think about. But something I'm noticing is I think a lot of these men who use dating apps are addicted to the chase. They're addicted to the match, and then the message, and then the first date, and then the second date, and then the build up to when they have sex. And then as soon as you have sex, they lose interest. It's really, really interesting. I think a lot of young men are not only addicted to the chase, but they're addicted to having sex with someone new. And I have met a few men like this, where they are just 3-date wonders. Like, they like the process, they like the chase, they do the first sex, and then done. And that is crazy. That's like, it's more, you know what it is? It's just so, I'm going to keep it real, guys. I think it's soulless. I think it's a soulless endeavor. And it's like something which, you know, I can't believe that people really get a lot of satisfaction out of that. You know, I understand the serial dating. I understand the trying different things, meeting new people. I get it. But if you are on a treadmill of the same thing, of 3 dates done, 3 dates done, 3 dates done, 3 dates done, I don't understand it. Like, it's literally just a conveyor belt of women. Like, I don't understand. And I think it's like, it's not just the sex addiction. I think a lot of men in general are quite addicted to dating apps, because I think that dating apps essentially act as validation machines for men. I think a lot of straight men don't get a lot of sort of like, I'm trying to think of the right word. like spoken validation, like audible validation. Straight men don't compliment each other, which I think is like the strangest thing in the world. Straight men, if you're watching, there's going to be very few of you. Compliment your other straight friend today. Compliment your straight male friend today. I think they essentially act as validation machines, and I think that straight men do not get a lot of sort of compliments and validation in their day-to-day lives. Therefore, and this isn't me trying to be like boohoo poor them, this is their own doing. And who set that system up? Like, so I've spoken to my therapist, and he told me, so I was talking about, I can't remember what I was talking about, but we were talking about dating apps or something, and he said, he was like, well, I have this male client who, he's met this girl, he's really happy, he's like, oh, she's the one, but he's really struggling to delete the app because it's, having to say goodbye to that validation, and he's finding it quite difficult. I also think, like, this is like obvious, but dating apps are a pretty shallow way to date. There are people that I've dated in real life who I would not have dated or I've not have matched with if they liked me on a dating app. And also, I think another issue with dating apps is that, when you're dating someone who you have no ties with, no mutual friends with, there is no accountability if they mistreat you. I know someone who was dating this guy for 3 months, and then it turns out he was seeing his ex the entire time. And she was telling me, she was like, see, this is the thing, we met on Hinge and we didn't have any mutual friends. And if we did have mutual friends, I would have known. Someone would have told me that he was still seeing his ex. And I've spoken about dating apps before, so I'm not going to get too into it. On my YouTube channel, it was what was it called? How am I supposed to be a hoe in these conditions? Or why is nobody having a hoe phase anymore, or something like that. And then also I made a podcast episode about dating apps. But I have a lot of thoughts on sort of like the predatory nature of the payment plans on dating apps. As I mentioned earlier, dating preys on our largest insecurities, the thought of being alone, trying to find a life partner, our appearance, our character, that I think it's honestly a bit heinous. Like with Hinge, if you have no likes, it says like, no likes, we're here to help. They position themselves as like, oh, we're helping you. You just have to give me a little bit of money and we'll boost your profile and you'll get matches. And, I just think it's kind of predatory. I read a really interesting article on how dating apps are contributing to income inequality on The Independent. This is by Isaac Lozano. Researchers found that at least half of the rise in income inequality between 1980 and 2020 is attributable to changing preferences in the online dating scene. People are now even more likely to marry someone of a similar socioeconomic level, lawyers marrying bankers, truck drivers marrying plumbers, etc. The report highlighted that the higher availability of educated and skilled women has decreased the number of men who prefer uneducated women. This contrasts to data from 1960 to 1980, where men preferred women with the least income, skills, and education, implying a preference for spouses who assumed domestic roles. As researcher Leanne once said, dating apps are the new marriage portraits. Like, it's so easy to grasp on a Hinge profile, for example, what a person is like and, what class background they are, right? If they've got a picture skiing, so many people have pictures of them skiing on Hinge. Oh my God. But I do think that it is harder than ever to meet someone. But I think a lot of people cite this as, oh, nobody approaches people in real life anymore because of dating apps. I actually don't think that's true. I think that the reason why it's harder than ever to meet someone is not because people approach each other in real life less, it's because people are in real life less. I've discussed this so many times before on literally all of my platforms. Like I am really, podcast, YouTube, Reels, I honestly get where water can't. But there has been a decrease in weekly congregational clubs amongst young people, like religious groups, civic clubs, and unions, and more people than ever are being forced to cut down on their socializing hours, like going for dinner, drinks, clubbing, because of the cost of living crisis and how expensive it is to go for drinks, to go clubbing, to go for dinner, etc. So I don't think that it's harder to meet someone because people approach people less because of dating apps, which we are going to circle back to this sort of concept of are dating apps to blame for people not meeting in real life anymore? Or rather, do people approach people less because of dating apps? I think people spend so much less time socializing because of things like economic hardship, the decrease of congregational clubs, which has led to the boom of running clubs, but also our phones. Girl, the phones. Like I've said this before, the more time we spend on our phones, the more time we spend alone. You know, so much of socializing is driven through boredom. And because of this thing, we can now never be bored. But something that I've found really interesting is from this recent fall of dating apps, from how the dating apps have fallen from grace, is there has been a rise of like, I guess I'd call them anti-dating apps and offline dating. So, you know, these apps often market themselves as the dating apps for people who hate dating apps. But from like what I've researched, a lot of people's reasons that they cite for hating dating apps actually has nothing to do with the reasons that I have said. It's got nothing to do with disposability, sex addiction facilitated in young men, and, you know, dating someone without any mutual friends, no accountability. It's actually, people haven't cited those reasons. From what I read, the most common reasons that people don't like dating apps is because people not messaging, or messaging but never ending up on a date, aka getting trapped in the talking stage. I'm sorry, I'm going to hold my hands when I say this to you girls. If you are over the age of 20 and you are having a talking stage, get a grip. I'm so sorry. That was very mean. But there are no talking stages in our 20s, 30s, 40s going forward. Okay, we're adults. We can meet up and go for a drink. My rule to stop getting trapped in texting is I get a date locked in within 10 messages, or I just stop replying. And that's my truth. So people cite the reason for hating dating apps: people not messaging but never ending up on a date, getting ghosted, and struggling to meet like-minded people who are also looking for long-term relationships. I think these are completely fair enough reasons to not like dating apps, because I do think these are problems with dating apps, but these are problems which you can work around, in my opinion. So we had dating apps launching their own running clubs, which I spoke about in my running clubs episode. So I think Thursdays, Tinder and Bumble all launched their own running clubs. So Thursday is the first offline dating event that I knew of. So it's in-person dating events which take place on a Thursday, because 2025 is about meeting in real life, not on an app. So you download the app. It's only active on Thursdays. You buy £3 for a ticket. And honestly, I have heard mixed reviews. So I've heard very good reviews through word of mouth. I've heard my friends say, my friend went to a Thursday event and said it was really fun. But also I'm very aware that my friend who did say this to me really wants me to go to a Thursday event with her. I am very in-person dating events really aren't for me, because I don't like mass. I don't like small talk en masse, if that makes sense. My least favorite part of going to a party is having to small talk with people that I don't know. And I think that dating events are essentially small talking with a bunch of people that you don't know. I'd rather just go on a date with one person and really, really get into it with them. And sure, there's small talk at the beginning. What do you do? Blah, 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 blah. But you can really get into it quite quickly and spend 4 or 5 hours with that person, rather than just go around a room and have small talk with 20 different people. It's basically like a networking event. And if you know me in real life, you know how much I hate networking events. I actually avoid networking events like the plague, because I don't like talking about myself, and I don't like, it's not even necessarily talking about myself. I talk about myself on this podcast all the time, but I don't like talking I don't like explaining what I do to loads of people. I just don't like the small talk. That's it. I don't like small talk, girls. I have had some not even necessarily negative reviews, more just reviews of people weighing up the pros and the cons. So I have heard these events are quiet at the beginning, but they do pop off later, which is very normal for any London event, dating or not, or any city event. I have heard that the women are always really nice. I can imagine, for some reason, the beginning of a dating event being a school disco. I said this in one of my last episodes. Everybody sort of standing near the walls, not knowing how to talk to each other. And also I've heard that there are just, more women than men, which I think is just reflective of the current dating climate. And then I guess similar to Thursday, there's been uptick in speed dating, which I think is so fun. I would never do, again, I wouldn't do speed dating myself because I don't like small talk en masse. Things like in-person dating events and speed dating is like my worst nightmare. But I have heard again, it's one of those things, it's really, really mixed bag reviews of positive and negative things about speed dating. I think one of my biggest drawbacks with in-person dating events is not only my hatred for small talk, but let's say in this ideal world, I didn't hate small talk. I love small talk. I think my biggest drawback from offline dating events would be this idea of sort of sunk cost fallacy, where I think because you've invested, I mean, the amount you pay for it is really small, but because you have invested time, and not just you've invested an evening, you've invested, there's an emotional investment that comes with dating. Even if you're dating casually, even if you're dating like just to have some fun, there is like an emotional cost to it. It can be quite exhausting. That I think that, and especially if you're someone who you're making the effort to go to an offline dating event, you're making an effort to go to a Thursday event or to go speed dating, you're clearly someone who wants to be in a relationship, you want to meet someone. So there is this like emotional investment that you make where, you're building up to it all day, you're getting nervous, you're, spending this whole evening, you arrive on your own, like blah, 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 blah. There is like an emotional investment, you're investing your time. And I think that it is one of those things where I can imagine if you end up meeting a guy and you like get on well and like everything's sort of like fine, you sort of feel like, well, I've come all the way here and I've invested sort of my emotions in this and my time, like, yeah, sure, I'll ask his number and I'll go on a date with him. Do you know what I mean? Like it almost makes it a bit clinical, and I think that it makes it a bit like, there just is this sunk cost fallacy at stake where I think that I can imagine a lot of people end up going on dates with people that they don't really want to go on a date with them. They get on well, but you can get, guys, I'm telling you, I've dated guys where I've gotten on with them really well, but there's no spark, there's no chemistry. Like that's a very, very common thing. It's so rare that you meet someone where it's like, you get on, there's a spark, there's chemistry, like, it's rare, right? Because like we're humans and there's so many factors at play, and I can imagine that, I would be like this if I didn't hate small talking, that if I've like just invested my emotions and my time into this offline dating event, I'd probably just go on a date with someone that I met there for the sake of it. Or not just that, I guess it's like when you meet someone and you get on with them, there's almost this pressure to sort of stick with them in case someone else snaps them up, or I guess that's probably what the problem of speed dating solves, I guess. But that's sort of my thoughts. But we've also got the dating app Breeze. So this is a dating app where when you match, you must go on a date and you cannot message beforehand. If you end up cancelling the date, you actually get charged. It's intended for people who are sick of dating apps and matching without messaging, or messaging without ending up going on a date. So I actually really understand the intention of Breeze. Like I get it. But number one, it is possible to, when I hear people complaining about like, oh, with dating apps, I never end up being asked out on dates. I'm always like, I match with people, but they don't message, or I message people, it doesn't end up on a date. There are ways to make dating apps work for you, I promise. But I understand the problem that Breeze is trying to solve for a lot of people. But guys, I have only heard bad things about Breeze. I've only heard bad things about Breeze, and it's mostly related to the fact that like people will meet up with someone and they just won't vibe with them. And I think the reason why is because I do actually think messaging before matching is essential to be able to vet someone. Of course you can't vet someone fully. You could end up on the date and it could be a dud. You never know. But I feel like I've gotten quite good at vetting people from their profile and from their messaging. I remember once I matched with this guy, and I think I might have messaged him first actually, and we were talking about like, what's your worst, like, one of his prompts was something about like ending up like with like the worst night out story. So I was like, oh, go on, tell me then. Guys, this man brought up, I don't want to say, he brought up fucking rape on a dating app. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, this guy's a fucking weirdo. Like, he made a joke about rape, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, and it's the thing is that regardless, no. But on a dating app especially, double no. And that's when I knew that this guy was a fucking freak. Like, I was like, no way, unmatched him straight away. The thing is, if me and him had met on Breeze, I would have had to deal with that in real life, in person. So I think that I do think messaging is an essential part of dating apps. And if you are someone who you keep finding yourself getting trapped in talking stages, stop messaging after 10 messages. Cut them off. I'm sorry, we've got to be harsh here, girls. Being as a majority of people are meeting their partners through dating apps and they're essentially dating strangers, right? Messaging is such an integral part because you're not meeting through friends, there's no way of vetting them. So just to quote Serena Smith for Dazed, so there's Breeze, the dating app which takes dating offline, where you're blocked from chatting with matches until you meet face-to-face on your first date. There's Left Field, currently only available in New York, which describes itself as the dating app designed to help people meet people in the wild and works by sending users a push notification when a potential match is in their vicinity. That sounds terrifying. French app Happen operates in a similar way, with users able to connect with other users they have crossed paths with in real life. I kind of get that one. Relatedly, we're also in the midst of a speed dating renaissance with good old-fashioned singles events popping up in the UK, US, and beyond. And I feel like, that sort of left field date of like being able to connect with people who are near you runs into a similar problem, which the pear ring runs into. Okay, this is again another article from Serena Smith about the pear ring from a couple years ago. If 1.2 billion singles around the world wore a little green ring on their finger to show they're single, we wouldn't need dating apps. IRL connection is the mission, reads a statement on the Pear website. For $19.99, you'll get 3 pear rings in 3 different sizes, as well as a unique membership number and an invite to Pear Fest, plus access to exclusive free events in their city. So far, the first release of the rings has sold out, with the second release sale ending soon. At time of writing, their website says their stock is 93% sold out, while their Instagram has racked up over 162,000 followers. So I think in theory this works, because I understand that what stops people from approaching people in real life is the fear that they're in a relationship. A fear of rejection. Or, a lot of men don't want to approach women in real life because they're worried about coming across as creepy, which I honestly think is a good thing. Serena Smith writes that the widespread appeal of dating apps comes from the supposed lack of rejection, lessening the sting of rejection, but it has dampened the joy of finding love. But, the problem with Pear is that, number one, I don't think that the issues of modern dating lie with the fact that people don't approach people in real life anymore, or people are too concerned to approach people in real life anymore because they're worried that they're not single. Because number one, I do genuinely think that the reason why maybe men approach women less in real life is because they're worried about coming across as creepy, and they are worried about being rejected. And having a pear ring isn't going to stop you from being rejected. And I think that this pear ring reinforces the idea that a woman must be in a relationship to not be interested in you. Like, I think that a woman can wear a pear ring and still reject you. So I don't understand how it makes a difference. I honestly think that a lot of the problems of, not even necessarily the problems of dating, but I think the reason why people meet people so much less in real life anymore is because people do not socialize as much as they used to. Again, economic factors, we're all addicted to our damn phones, etc. I just think that people spend a lot less time socializing than they used to, which is why so many more people meet on dating apps. I just don't think that the pairing works. I understand it in theory, but again, it's like, just because the reason why men don't approach women, or maybe men approach women less, I don't think has anything to do with them worried they're being in a relationship. Because again, whether you're in a relationship or not doesn't make a difference of whether you're going to be rejected. I don't think it particularly increases or decreases your chances. I think most of it has got to do with the fact that people just socialize so much less than they used to. I also think that a lot of the lack of socialization can absolutely be related to the party deficit. I'm not going to get too into it in this episode because I've spoken about this before. But, nightlife is in crisis in London. People party so much less nowadays, especially young people, because again, economic factors, but also people can't host house parties or dinners anymore because most people live in house shares, or they live in apartment blocks where they need to worry about disrupting their housemates or disrupting their neighbors. There's less congregational clubs. My sort of hot take is I think that a lot of the problems with dating aren't necessarily rooted in dating apps. I'd probably say 50% of the problems are rooted in dating apps, and then 50% are just problems within sort of the gender imbalance within heterosexual dating. something I notice is that women hate dating apps so much more than men. Women hate dating apps so much more than men, and it's because the men are winning. You know, for every one attractive man, there's 5 attractive women. And I read this article from Moya Lothian McLean where she spoke about I think she literally just wrote an article about dating, and all of the men that she interviewed said that the caliber of women are unreal. You know, they're all beautiful, they're all successful, they're all charismatic, and women very much say the opposite, essentially, that it's quite rare to find a good one. And when you do, you'll know you're competing with about 5 other women that they can choose from, and you know, they're laughing, guys. They're bloody laughing. But so what do I have to conclude this episode with? Yeah, the rise of offline dating. You know, I think if it works for you, it works for you. It doesn't, it doesn't. But I think that a lot of the rise of offline dating is people, you know, saying that the root cause of the issues are 100% caused by dating apps, and I do not believe that is true. I think that 50% of problems with dating are caused by dating apps or further exacerbated by dating apps. You know, disposability culture, dating apps facilitating sex addiction in young men, the danger of sort of dating someone who you don't have any mutual friends with. You know, there are a lot of problems which are born from dating apps, but I think that, you know, like 50% of the problems are just rooted in the culture. There's a gender imbalance, you know, and I think this gender imbalance is further being exacerbated when women are more than ever completely outperforming men in every aspect of their lives. And honestly, I think a majority of the problems with dating are not only rooted in this gender imbalance, but I also think they're rooted in the fact that people are being stripped away the right to socialize through the current economic conditions of this country. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I really, really enjoyed recording this. I am obsessed with dating. I find it so, so interesting. So let me know if you want me to be a dating columnist, because I'll apply for a dating columnist job, I guess. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was so, so fun. I feel like I've left it on a little bit of an abrupt point. But, you know, my sort of biggest piece of dating advice for the girlies out there who are struggling is to take a circuit breaker. Take a break. And I'm telling you guys, the longer you take the break, it's like I can feel my brain finally changing after I've been wanting my brain to change from this, like, you know, mode that it's set in where I feel like I always need to desire a romantic relationship, and I always, you know, desire wanting to be with a man, etc. Now that I've taken this break, I can genuinely feel the mode of my brain changing and my priorities really reshuffling. And I think that's the best way that you can approach life. And this is the thing, is that if it happened, I'm not saying that you just throw off dating altogether, because I haven't. But I think I'm a believer in fate. And I think that when it's meant to happen, it will happen. And I think that a lot of these, you know, especially men my age, sort of between the age of 24 to 28, you know, these men, they aren't looking to settle down. I think that when you rewire your brain and rewire your priorities, you will just care a lot less. And when you fully find so much satisfaction, because the thing is, it's difficult because it's like I had satisfaction and fulfillment, but my brain was still set in like relationship mode. It's not even necessarily about finding satisfaction and fulfillment, because you can have that and still yearn for a relationship, but it's about, you know, rewiring your brain, really. But guys, a little bit of life advice, just rewire your brain, innit? But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you soon for the next one. Bye!